So you can afford to be in business and make losses for 3 years, you still be in business, but you only run out of money once. You run out of cash today, by next week you are out of business. Now one of the fundamental mistakes that people make is that they confuse their business money with their personal money. This is what they usually do. As they make money, they will just continue to spend and they say, well, it's my business. Yes, it's actually your business, but this is the problem. If you continue to spend the money as you make it, the reason for why people make that mistake is because they do not understand the fundamental structure of what business is about. Let's assume for a second that, I don't know, whatever business that you decide to go into. If you are making money and you are spending it, some people would think that, okay, if I started the business with 1,000 naira, so every time I get some money, I spend more, and then they think because they are spending, next month you spend 200 naira, and the following month you spend another 300 naira. How many people believe that as you spend this money, the value of your business is increasing by this money as you are spending? A lot of people believe that, as you spend money, when you ask them, if I want to buy your business, you will now tell me that your business is worth how much now? 1,500. But some people who understand finance, you will know that the business that you are running has no representation with how much money you spend on it. The value of business today is represented by the future cash flow, discounted cash flow, future income stream discounted back to present day value to the predetermined rate of interest. So if I want to buy your business, I will ask you, what are you making at the moment? I will calculate that by, say over a period of time and use what we call capitalization rate, and then I'll be able to determine how much I should pay for it today, and I will not even consider any of this. Do you understand? The value of a business today is represented by the future cash flow of the business discounted back to present day value with a predetermined rate of interest known as capitalization rate. That, I want you to bear that in mind as I talk this afternoon. It's very important that I will keep coming back to it. So, what you are doing is to say total revenue minus total cost over this little I here. You know what that is? That's the rate of interest. That's how you get the capitalization of the value of the company. Now, this thing here, every action you take is affected by the top here. But the issue is the reputation of your business, how much you are making, the future projection of the business, and everything else you are doing is affecting this interest rate. Because don't forget, interest is a function of risk. The only reason why you pay somebody more for using his money is because I told you yesterday, what did I say was, there is a potential reduction in the purchasing power of the money. And what was the second one? Default risk. There is a chance that you might not be able to pay back, so you got to pay compensation for those two factors. And that's the reason why everything else that you're doing within the business environment will be affected by this, it will be affecting this interest rate. Now, I want you to bear that in mind as I gradually begin my program. And I want you to take note of these companies here, and when I ask, I'm going to ask you, if you think about the company, what is it that comes to your mind? Because the subject that I have been giving this afternoon is to talk to you about how you actually build and manage your business. Alright? So, take note of that, just take down note of this company. The first one, write down the Disney World, the one they call the Magic Kingdom. What I want you to do is, when you think about those companies, what is it that comes to your mind? What makes you remember them? What is it that you say, okay, I think about this and I remember this one? The Disney World, write down IBM as well. And then write Motorola as well. Please write down those words that I consider.
Disney World.
Okay, Disney World, yes. What comes to your mind when you think about Disney World? Entertainment. Okay. You see, somebody got that right. We actually spoke about that yesterday, right? So what's the next one?
IBM.
So what comes to your mind when you think about IBM?
Machine.
Business machine.
Business machine, which is the thing that IBM makes.
Typewriter.
Okay, what is wrong with that interpretation now? She just said that when you think about using word, you think about entertainment. She did not mention any products. IBM isn't a bad machine. Okay, remember what I said yesterday about building the institution? Okay, what is that in a second? So say what's the other company? Okay, somebody saying electronics again. So what was the last one?
Motorola.
Okay, so what do you think about
Communications.
All right. Let me just move aside a little bit and ask you a question that I spoke to you about yesterday. Remember yesterday I said you should spend some time thinking about some ideas? Did any of you actually do that? I mean, my sister here is already getting angry about whether I'm going to get you to start discussing the idea because of intellectual property matters and the rest of it. No, I'm not necessarily going to ask you to start discussing the idea. Suffice to say, I just want to know that I have been able to engage your mind to start working. I mentioned some business ideas yesterday. I talked about the fleet management business in the truck industry, which is an example that I did. I mentioned the used car part or used car business yesterday. And also, how many of you actually know right now that there's more demand for cannabis in Nigeria than we have? Cannabis. You know cannabis? It's cannabis now, not the palm oil. People are beginning to source from Ghana as a whole. And also, even the cannabis shell, the demand for cannabis shells in Europe is astronomical. Because within Africa as a whole, you know that the United States is fronting this agenda about global warming and the rest of it. So every country now is giving their commitment to move away from charcoal and cutting down trees and the rest of it. So it's cannabis shells. That's the future of that industry. So how many of you know how many products you can make out of cashew nuts, for example? Yeah, cashew. Yeah.
Residues.
You get the
oil.
And then you get the cashew out, then you extract some oil, and then
The fruit.
The nuts.
yes, and then after you remove the nut from that little shell, and then you fry it and all, and then you can extract some oil from the cashew shell, and then they can also press the shell itself for burning furnaces and all those other things. Cashew, by the way, is a plant that is native to Brazil. And it was the Portuguese that brought it to Mozambique. And it was the elephant that transported it across Africa. So it's everywhere now. But it's still one of the most lucrative businesses that you can start. Because the demand for it in Asia and Europe and the United States, you look at Nigeria is one of the largest producers of cashew in the world. Yet we export about 85% of that to Vietnam and India. That's where they are processed. So when they are coming back, they carry a logo that is saying made in whatever country, somewhere in Europe and every other place else. The issue is that they are produced here, even though, okay, a lot of it started in India because the plant was also taken there. But we have them across. How did elephant spread it across Africa? Because when the elephant picked it up, it just carried the whole thing, squeezed that apple that is attached to it, and then it swallowed the nut. And so as they move across, they drop that the nut, and then that's how it goes. The point I'm trying to make to you here is that is a very powerful industry. That the opportunity there is astronomical. Okay. What do you think is one of the highest growth businesses around at the moment? Yeah, there are some industries that this is a high growth industry. And some of them they are around you, but you probably just think that okay, well, cassava is a good one, but cassava is not as high as pig, for example. Pig farm, for example. Yes. Do you know how pig produce?
Yes.
It's a multiple.
they born like 11, 12 at a time.
30.
So if you carry 5 female and then 2 male in one place, if you come back in the year, the entire place is filled up.
It's filled up.
Now, we will talk about the mechanics of how you actually build this into the business in a short while. But what I want you to understand is there are tremendous opportunities around you already in terms of developing the idea and building the business that you want. But for the subject that I have before me today, how you actually manage and build the business, I'm going to ask a question again. When you decide to set up a business, what do you think is the most important aspect of the business establishment that you're about to put together? We discussed a lot of things yesterday, and I'm going to take you back to some of them so that you remember what I said yesterday. When you want to start a business, you need to understand, okay, marketing was mentioned earlier. Marketing is actually very important. But there is an aspect that I want to be, which marketing is still a branch of, which you must concentrate on more when you try to put a business together. I'm not sure whether some of you were looking at notes yesterday. Let me take you back to that aspect.
Yes.
Do you remember this aspect yesterday? Now, where do you think the power is feeding from now? Where's the power feeding from? It's feeding from this direction. That's right. Somebody got that right, yes. Because you see, when you want to build and manage a company, this aspect is more important. Now, all these are very important, right? But this is the mistake. The conventional idea is for somebody to tell you, look for a good source of money and get the right technology, have a strong vision. All that, they are all very important. And then the idea, as a matter of fact, I think what is being sold around business schools is that if you can develop a very good idea, which is the dominant idea philosophy, that if you have a very sound idea, you already have a successful business. So I want to prove to you, within the few brief moments that I have, that aspect is more important when you're putting the business together. Now, the reason why I asked that question before I started, which is the companies that I asked you about earlier, I wanted you to know where you focus your attention if you are trying to put a business together. That's why I mentioned this company. So if you mention something like IBM, somebody might say, oh, System 360, because actually System 360 was the most successful product that IBM has ever developed. In fact, it cost more than the amount of the project, all put together. That was in the early days. That's what made IBM in terms of product. But they were ready. It was the environment that they created, the social environment that they created that allowed the development of that innovative product to take place. Are you following me now?
Yeah.
All right. Now, in that case, if you remember yesterday when I was talking to you, I told you on the flip chart, I can't follow it right now, that in the early days, if you were in the 15th century, and you wanted to do a business, you are not likely going to be maybe a craftsman or an artisan, you're operating alone, you're on your own. All right? So you do not need to be concerned about whether you have the right institution or not. But now, what did I say business is? Yesterday I mentioned it. A business is a social enterprise. All right? Because you are bringing accountants, development managers, marketers, and all kinds of people from different backgrounds and different personalities, putting them together to try and create value. That's what organization is. You put all these people together and find a way to create value for what you think people need. By the way, in terms of needs, you actually have expressed needs and you have latent needs. The thing that people know they want right now, that's expressed needs. So when you are talking about latent needs, it's the thing that they don't know the need, but the desire is inside. So the moment you create that thing, you have effectively created an express need or an effective demand. So that's what the business is about. You create the program to try to satisfy that need. So if that is the case, you know that the business is a social enterprise. What should you concentrate on now as the business leader? Building the right institution that allows individuals within the organization to create what you need to satisfy customer needs. Okay, let's take an example. We will try and let's deal with IBM. For example, I just told you a second ago that IBM is never about system 360. So let us start. Go back to using and managing the business. Managing your business. You can see the institution right in the middle. All right? The first thing you want to do when you are about to run or manage your business is to clarify your vision. Is that not correct?
Yes.
Right. Now, within that, let's just say we deal with the mission first. What is the mission?
What you have in plan.
Somebody said the purpose. That you just giving it another name. But what I want to know is
Anticipated destination.
So your mission is how you hope to accomplish your vision.
a mission is a broad philosophical statement that attempt to capture the essence of the company's existence. What that is saying is the very essence why the company exists. It's very aspirational. Okay, so don't limit yourself when you're defining your vision. It has to be very aspirational. You cannot look at what you have today and what you do today to say, okay, the reason why I'm setting up this business, and then you basically just close the door on yourself because you are looking at the past. Nobody drives into the future by looking at the red. Do you ever drive forward by looking at the red mirror? No. The people who continue to step back when they are supposed to be looking forward. They don't actually move. So, but if you're defining your vision, you need to be very aspirational because you are looking forward. It has no way of representing where you are coming from. It only looks at where you're going. All right, that is the essence. Now, let me explain it by looking at some examples. I said we'll start with IBM. Why do you think I said a moment ago that IBM is not about system physics? It is not about the product, because the gentleman, do you know that Thomas Watson Sr. that I mentioned yesterday, he was 40 when he joined IBM in 1914. I told you that it was 3 small desperate companies that were put together in 1911 that later became IBM. I told you what they are: computing, tabulating, and recording company. It was 3 of them that were put together in 1911, and IBM was brought in to consolidate the company. Sorry, Thomas Watson Sr. was brought in to consolidate the company in 1914. The first thing he said was, look, we got to find a way to make the world work better. That's what the company is about. So when I move on in a short while and talk to you about the values that Thomas Watson Sr. built inside the company to ensure that it guides the people's behavior and they continue to interpret that in light of changing environment. Now that's something you need to bear in mind. When you develop a vision or a value statement, it needs to be interpreted over time. Because sometimes the values that help you to be successful at a point in your business can start getting in the way. Because the system and the environment has changed. And if you refuse to change, then you will have problems in terms of how you relate that to the people at one point. Let me look at a few examples. Let's look at General Electric. That is what they say their mission is. You know General Electric, don't you? Right? Yesterday, I mentioned to you how General Electric started. Did I not mention that yesterday? I said General Electric and another company called Westinghouse, they started at the same time. General Electric, they invented the DC battery. And then Westinghouse invented the AC battery. Now, even though over time, the battery that General Electric invented was eventually superseded by the power of the AC battery by Westinghouse. Nobody, is anybody in this house, in this room, that have ever heard about Westinghouse? No. That is because the set of values that General Electric developed in the very early days, gentleman called Charles Hoffman. He was the one that put the point of value together in the early days. You will find something that is very consistent among all the different aspects of value that I'm going to be looking at in a short while. That will be the respect for the individual employees or the individual staff, respect for the individual staff. But improving the quality of life through technology and innovation. Have you seen where they mention anything about money here?
No.
Respect for the individual employee. The same thing with IBM. Excellent customer service, superiority in everything we do, and then respect for the individual employee. Again, that's the third one. But I want to spend a bit of time in just looking at the IBM set of core value or mission. What do you think that excellent customer service would mean in the 1940s? Computers were just coming out. They had mainframe computers in those days that it was larger than the size of a room. IBM in those days, they were concentrating more. You see how these things fit together in a short while. They were concentrating more on saying, okay, how do we deliver computing power to businesses in a manner that it takes care of their business problems? Then what you have is proprietary technology. That means if you are manufacturing a particular type of software and I'm doing another one, our own will not interact. That was the problem then. So IBM concentration was how do we give them computing power that deal with their business problems? And then even the, what do you call it? Respect for the individual employee that they also put in there. Thomas Watson Senior developed a philosophy that says, look, what we have to do is to ensure that, it was in the Depression era, because at the time that, the Depression era, after the stock market crash in 1929, the period that followed, the economy was so difficult that the suicide rate was alarming. So job security was far more important than anything else. For Thomas Watson Senior to motivate the staff, he developed a philosophy that, look, we got to get these people engaged in everything that we do, even in the decision-making process. And then we pay them well. They hardly fire anybody. So that was how they were able to motivate people in that period. And then superiority in everything we do. For him, he felt that, look, if we are going to produce anything or we're going to deliver any service, it must be the best. The point that I'm trying to make you understand here is that these are the sort of values or the mission that was able to anchor the company that got it through all the problematic period that they went through. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what is wrong if I have a sound business idea? No, absolutely, there's nothing wrong. Okay? There's nothing wrong with having a smart business idea. Okay, I'm going to stop there in a second. I want to reverse back now again about business idea. When I was talking a short while ago, somebody mentioned cocoa. Who was that person? You know something about cocoa? Let me just quickly declare an interest that I am a consultant to FACAN. How many of you know FACAN? That's the Federation of Association of All Commodity Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. It's the federal government initiative that FACAN, it's FACAN. That's all the manufacturers association in the country. Whether you are in cocoa, in cashew, sesame seed, or whatever, they all have associations. So those associations, federal government, an umbrella body that represent that association, they go under the Ministry of Trade and Investment. I know almost, this is an information for you that it's important that you take this into account because I actually know almost all the state chairmen and all the local coordinators and everything. Whatever business that you want to engage in any sort of allied processing and the rest of it, you just, if you want contact with any of them, I can always direct you to them and they engage you in what they do. And they help you to try and see how they can put your business together. That is what they are there to do. That's what they are there to do. Makes sense. So I was asking questions about cocoa. You know something about cocoa, man? Sorry? I think so. A little bit. Are you in cocoa business at the moment? No. Can somebody tell me here what is the one thing that you're passionate about? Because I want to make this process effective. much more interactive. I'll come back to it in a second. What is the one thing that you're passionate about? And then we will try and look at that and look at the industry and say, okay, this is the kind of processes and culture and value system that we need to put in place to sustain that business. And then we'll talk about the financing option as well.
Let's take, for example, assuming like I have intention in going to coal exports. So I don't know how, maybe it is a short-time business or it is a long-time business.
Did you say coal?
Coal, yeah.
Okay.
I mean charcoal.
Yes.
Oh, charcoal. Okay. Charcoal has a rather limited future. I mentioned it a short while ago.
Yes.
That they are cutting away from charcoal. Yes. They are moving into granite. Okay. All right. Somebody is interested in granite. Which part of the country has the largest production of granite? The north. All right. So if you are interested in doing in processing cashew nut, for example, what do you think you're supposed to do next? No, not cashew nut, granite. What do you think you're supposed to do next? You relocate to the north? No. The forgotten person that I mentioned yesterday, what did I say yesterday?
Online.
If you were training in my father's era, the first thing you think about is where do I rent a shop? Or where can I lease one big place where I can set up a factory? And that's the thing in the state in that era. And you forgot what I mentioned yesterday. I told you that is no longer selling. You don't do business by physical environment anymore. So given what we spoke about yesterday, I told you yesterday, you can lease a space. You can lease a space on any of these internet-enabled businesses that would allow you to actually have like a shop or a marketplace where you do everything. But that's for another time. But what do you think you should do next? Yeah, that's a good one. Because you see, nobody has mentioned research. Who is going to be interested in this thing that you want to start producing? That's the first thing you got to figure out. Who will be interested in buying this product? Now, if your target market is Europe, Asia, I don't know where you want to focus the market. But the important thing is you have to find out first who is going to be buying the product, right? Now that you've identified that, what do you do next? Because you have to make this very practical now. So, what do you do next?
For the raw material,
Where you are going to be able to get the raw material. Now, do you need to stay close to where the raw material is? What you call proximity in the old school?
No, you can.
All right, so you can source your material by identifying suppliers in the areas where they have, manufacturers of that product. Now, you form a relationship with them. Presumably you have built a relationship with them, negotiate supply, some kind of supply arrangement with them. So what do you do next? If we start talking about funding very, very quickly, you will not be able to explain to me if you want to get the money from me, where and how you intend to process the product. Okay, you need to identify where and how you intend to process the product. Who is going to be processing it? And based on the sort of innovative approaches that we discussed yesterday, you may not want to be frying the granule yourself, right? Yes. So you may want to identify some local guys that actually collect this granule, process them, and have them ready. How many of you think that all the materials that they use in cement production, that is the one that extract and process all of them? There are some guys somewhere in Gombe and all these places that, their job is to extract these things in small quantities, and then they have local dealers that collect them and have them ready in large quantities. I was watching doing some project with a company that came in from Switzerland that wants to start processing cashew. Now, we went to a number of places. We went to Holland. I mentioned Holland International to you the other day in Kwara State. They are sort of like the largest processor of cashew in Nigeria at the moment. They process cashew in Nigeria. They process shea nut in Ghana. in 2012, I think I mentioned it yesterday, their turnover was $20.68 billion. All right? So we went everywhere, and then eventually we ended up that we're going to get some kind of arrangement in the North, because that's where they also have cashew. What we did was we had a meeting with the king and some of the local dealers, because it's obvious that these guys will not be able to be buying the cashews in small bags in all those villages. So they have to identify, with the help of the king, the local dealers of cashews in those areas. And then the arrangement was put in place that they are going to be supplying 30,000 metric tons a year, they collect it between them to be processed. Now, it was after that was done that the sourcing of the material, the processing material, started. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. So, staying on our groundnut example, you identify the nut, and then you source the materials based on local information that you have. You work out your research on the people who are going to be buying the products from you, say, for example, in Europe. What happens next? What happens next?
The person you have to sell it to.
So, no, we just said that they don't want to process it themselves. They are going to use local people that will try to not have them ready. So, if you move on to the next level, okay, somebody likes to talk about money. Let us talk about money. Does money actually have to come in physical cash?
No.
So what do you do if you know that, for example, the project cost is going to be about $6.5 million? What would you look at now? Say, for example, $6.5 million. And as you are considering that question, there's something I want you to consider, which is something that we're going to talk about in a short while. Yes. When you are considering sources of finance, how you're going to get the money to do the business, what are you supposed to be thinking about? That's the point. How do you want to write this down? No, sir. She has confused me now. I'm about to write loan because
Sources of finance.
Sources of finance. Now, what are you supposed to be thinking about now? It's important that it is not just the loan. That is not the only source of finance. That is very, very important. It's important that you consider that, because you could actually have equity, right? You could have equity, and then you could have loan, right? Because it's important that the mix is correct. You have to get the mix right. Now, I will tell you how you determine the mix in a minute, because some of them are more expensive than the other, and it's important that you know the type of business that you're doing and the type of money that you need. So if you are going to do supply, let's say export supply, you are looking for export finance, are you supposed to be looking for equity finance? Because that is a short-term loan. You probably only need something like 3 months or so to execute the deal. So what are you supposed to be looking for there? You can take a short-term loan from the bank, the one they call export finance, 90 to 120 days. Or you can even work with, what do you call it, trade finance, international trade finance, which is something like letter of credit. You understand? The reason is that some are more expensive than the other. If you were in a pioneering business, for example, say you're starting out to develop a new technology, and you know that this is a breaker, and then you're looking for money to do the business, and then your consultant just told you that there are some federal government incentives for pioneering business. Are you aware of some of them? One of them is tax exemption. There are some pioneering business that you will start for 5 years, you will not have to pay corporation tax. You understand? So, if you were doing that and you have a pioneering business that you know that you are not going to pay tax for, say, for 5 years, which of these means of sourcing money do you think is cheaper?
Loan.
Who said loan? Somebody said loan, yeah. Loan is cheaper. Do you know why loan is cheaper? Because when you earn money, if you make money from the business that you're doing, say this is your total revenue here, or let us say net revenue, after you deduct all the expenses and everything else, right? If that is your net revenue, the law allows you to deduct interest on loan from this place here. You deduct the interest on loan before if there's any tax implication or anything that is coming, can apply. If you are dealing with equity, if you take out, you guys know what equity is, right? Equity participation. We mentioned yesterday, you are running a limited company and we want 1 million naira to do the business, and every single one of us here decide to put 200,000 together. That's our equity finance. So if you earn anything on equity, say for example dividend, it is not tax deductible. You can't remove it before you apply the tax. So in terms of what we call cost of money, which is an expression that I'm not sure maybe some of you might be familiar with, if you want to determine the cost of money, for example, you have, how do you determine the cost of money? You have the cost of equity plus, that's the cost of equity, plus the debt. Debt now, you must minus 1 minus the rate of tax. That is how you determine the cost of debt. Alright? You will now add to that what we call the risk-free rate. That's the cost of government bonds. You add to that, and then you multiply that by, are you following me? You will now multiply that by what we call the beta rate. Now, you don't need to, you try not to get into that because that's all financial calculation. But what is important there is that I wanted you to understand that in certain situations, certain type of cost arrangement will be more expensive than the other.
Yeah.
Are you following me so far?
Yes.
Before we return to our college screen, I wanted us to talk briefly about real life business situation. You remember the money that we talk about in the world today, they are on paper. Alright? Nobody, I mean, if you ask a guy in the United States, what's your net worth, he will say $6 billion. He has 200 million in his account. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because he's using paper money to coordinate the business. That is why I gave you that example yesterday of letter of credit. As long as all the different parties to the, I'm sure some of you here understand law, that money is claims. That's what it is in law. And then once you set up the claims and counterclaims and this one, everything that I think you do is to work out the financing arrangement that you think may be available to you in terms of how you can move the goods across. First, you make sure that you have the order secured in the place where you are exporting it to. You understand? It's important that the order is secure. That you know that somebody or company is there that is about to take the order. That's one. And then the next thing you have to do is to say, okay, who can, I've identified the local suppliers, the people that are buying the palm kernel shells from. If somebody now says to me, okay, yeah, we can arrange a letter of credit of $1 million for you to buy the palm kernel shell, does that make sense to the guy in the what they call that palm kernel processing place in the Okomu or whatever they call them in the beginning now? Do you think that $1 million on the paper makes sense to that guy? No, he doesn't understand what he's talking about. $1 million letter of credit. So what do you do now? How do you convert it $1 million to start making sense to people who can't take it for money? Also, who would have to give you the palm kernel shell? What do you do now? You cash it. I wish you can. You cannot cash it because it's just a claim. What they're saying to you is that somebody in Boston, in the United States, is about to issue me a letter of credit of $1 million. Is they're going to send me a sample, just a sample of that paper, the letter of credit. I send it to my supplier. Are you guys happy with this letter of credit that is a credible bank? They say yes. And then we work out all the fees. And then they'll say, okay, you send me the letter of credit. And then I make arrangement with the supplier for everything that about that goods to be shipped the document to be shipped to them. That's why I mentioned bill of lading yesterday.
Yes.
They have to retain the document for title. Now, the problem is you have one problem because your supplier is not one company and is taking palm kernel shells for you. The problem is you have about 100 of them that are selling you small amounts of palm kernel shells. That's why I'm asking you, what would you do now to be able to share that small money for them and get the palm kernel shells? And that is probably where you need a local bank who will internalize the document for you. You're going to need a local bank at that point so that you can give them the instrument. When you give them the instrument, they will begin to release the money for you in transit depending on how much of the contract you have executed. You understand? So, when the goods are eventually shipped, and I explained this yesterday, and then the money is, is sent to the bank and they make the money available, what do you do next? When the bank receives the money, the goods have been shipped. You don't have the bill of lading. Huh? The bank have the money. They cannot release the money yet. They send the money to the letter of credit has been executed and they send the money. You don't have the money, and then you don't have the paper to you don't have the title paper to the material. It's still with what do you call them? You say, okay, this. You ask the bank to give you a trust receipt. I mentioned trust receipt yesterday. That trust receipt is what will allow you to be able to clear the goods from the customer. Or if you are exporting it, that's from the import direction. If you are exporting the goods out, the document that has been given to you, you can now send it to the people that you are sending the goods to, and that will let them to clear it, and then they will be able to release the money on time. And once the money is paid to your bank, whatever discount or fees that you're paying on it, they release the money so that you can start paying your people. But it takes understanding among the people that are working with you, whether the supplier or the people that are buying from you. Can anybody think of any other business idea? I actually want to discuss cash a little bit more later because
it appears the whole thing is still being presented in a kind of a theory form. I don't know if you could just try to itemize the steps that one is likely to follow to get this idea actualized. Because I think the only way by which we could appreciate what our employer has done in this regard is to actually put whatever we have gained here into practice. And I think it's going to actually assist a long way. That does not mean we could not involve you when it is necessary, but I think we need to get the whole idea. We need to get it firm on our hand before we could say, okay, Mr. So please, we need your involvement at this stage or something like that.
Okay, no problem. During break, I spoke to you about how, from which sources you have business ideas. I talked about social changes, political changes, economic changes, and also institutional void. Now, I need somebody to just mention one problem, and then all of us will do some creative thinking within just 2 minutes and see how we can create a business opportunity out of that problem within 2 minutes. Looking at the country, because I can go on for the next 2 hours and tell you the environment in which IBM was created. It was a problematic environment. The United States was just coming out of the Depression era when IBM was created. In fact, the event that made IBM was when Franklin Delano Roosevelt created the New Deal. You must have heard about the New Deal in the United States. When the bill for the New Deal was approved in 1936, that's what created the opportunity for IBM because they were already positioned to do the business. So the government required a lot of equipment immediately to start executing on the plan of New Deal. Involved a lot of benefit payment. It was a welfare system, social payment, and they didn't have the machinery and the infrastructure to execute on the New Deal. IBM was called in. The organization was already positioned to execute that, and that's the reason why, from that point on, they became a very successful company. But what I want you to do now is to just talk for just a second and tell me what problem that you see in this environment, and all of us can just say, why can't we solve it in this manner?
One business.
Huh?
One business.
Bad road network. What's the most famous problem in Nigeria?
Security.
Power. Somebody got that. Power. Security is a recent problem. In fact, since the inception of the formation of Nigeria as a nation state, fear has always been part of how we operate. We started by being afraid of the British. We started being afraid of the Biafrans. We started being afraid of the Yorubas. Now we are being afraid of the Africans. So fear has always been a permanent feature in our history. So we are not going to dwell on here. So we will talk about, say, for example, power. Now, have you ever sat down and said, okay, this electricity problem, it's actually a major problem. You cannot build a functioning market economy without power supply, adequate power supply. Have you ever sat down and say, okay, how can I create something that will answer some of the problems in the power industry? Because what the federal government just did the other day is a virtual privatization. Virtual privatization. You want to explain what I use?
Yes.
You heard that the federal government has privatized the power industry.
Yes.
What they did it's what we call virtual privatization.
On paper.
No, but because you need to understand the power industry for you to understand that. Well, the first thing you do in power industry, you look at what power generation.
Power. Yes.
We look at power generation. All right. What is the next level?
Distribution.
Transmission. No, transmission. When you generate, you have to transmit. And you see, that is the unique insight you need to know about the power industry. You can never stop power. As you generate, you must transmit. And that's solar power. Yes, electricity power on the national grid. You can't store it. As you are generating it, it must be transmitted. You transmit immediately. Now, what is the next level? You distribute. Now, when the government did that privatization, what I refer to as virtual privatization, you were hearing something like Gencos and Discos. Is that right?
Yes.
They were talking about Gencos and Discos. That was the catchphrase that they created for it. That generation and distribution. Now, what is happening now is that the government is retaining this aspect. They have privatized generation and distribution. I want you to pay attention to this because there's so much business opportunities here that you need to understand. All right, this is very important. I need you to pay attention. Now, power generation, we've just said a minute ago that once you generate, you cannot store, you must transmit. And for you to transmit in Nigeria at the moment, you have to put it into the national grid. You understand? As you generate, the government created what they call MPES. This is the group that, as you generate the power, they capture it wholesale, and then they start giving it to distribution company, and as they transmit it through the national grid. Now, simply, what have you? And then the people who are distributing, these guys here, they were giving licenses both sides. There are companies here that are now involved in distribution. Have you seen problem already? Where is the problem? Yes. You see, the government have antiquated infrastructure here. The system that we have in place at the moment is only carrying our current consumption. You know what our current consumption level is at the moment? We are still running around 5,000 megawatts. And you know, South Africa with about 55 million people, they have 40,000 megawatts. Wow. I will not more than 160 million. We are still struggling with 5,000 megawatts. Now, as a business person or an entrepreneur, you are already thinking, if these guys start generating a lot of power, the capacity here will not be able to move it across to these guys. Are you listening to me now?
Yeah.
So, what are you thinking about now? Tell me what you are thinking about in terms of business opportunity. Yes, you see, Madam, I just mentioned something very important. This is a bottleneck. And entrepreneurs look for bottlenecks. That is what you do. You look at industry, you look for the bottleneck so that you can create something to take care of that bottleneck. That transmission is creating bottleneck. It is going to, that, you see, I mentioned yesterday about what, how you create a business vision. And I started by telling you, you need to have childlike imagination. Remember we were talking about that glass yesterday? I'm surprised that none of you actually brought glass to try it out. I was thinking that somebody was going to bring a glass of water and face it to the screen and try to try it out this afternoon. But anyhow, imagination, childlike imagination. That's what you need. You are already imagining it now as an entrepreneur. If somebody like Prosek was in Nigeria, he's already thinking about, what am I going to do about this area? Another opportunity, let me point you to something. These guys here, they don't have sufficient capacity for distribution because the new agency that the federal government created that is called MBET, these guys are problematic. You must pass through them before you can capture electricity from here that you can distribute. And the way they allocate here is political. I don't even need to tell you that. There's so much politics into this agency here that these guys, they are already suffering from what they can distribute. Now, if you think about that for a second, you know that when they gave them the license, they have already told them they have an allocation of the maximum of what they can distribute. They have what they call built-in tariff, because the built-in tariff works by steps. They have, okay, in the early years you can charge this amount, just like petroleum sharing contract those days, and then after that you can charge also amount, and it sort of pays down gradually from there. If you have that information, and you know now that they don't have enough to distribute, what is the business opportunity now? Knowing also that there are some power generators in the United States now that can give you 1 megawatt. Some power generators. It has been calculated by the Federal Ministry of Power that you need about $1 million to produce 1 megawatt of power.
Hey.
So, you now know that you can acquire this generator here. Right? You can acquire this generator here and lease it to who? You can acquire that generator if you buy 5 of these generators and lease it to these guys.
At what cost?
Okay, well let's just say since the estimated is $1 million per generator. Say for example, you decided to buy 5. I know why Madam is saying at what cost, because I mentioned $1 million. We brought you here not to be thinking about 200,000.
Yes.
We want you to start thinking about what is possible, because in the global economy that we are at the moment, you don't have to have that $5 million. I have a project that I'm working on at the moment, it's $12 million. Are you asking me if I have $1 million in my bank? And I don't. But I am going to complete that project. That's the reason why you are here. So that you can find ways to do business like this. You can acquire 5 of these generators and listen to these guys on a 10-year contract. Do you understand? When you listen to them, you work out all the tariffs and everything. They are locked into that contract. You can just go home and sleep.
Of the form that I gave earlier on the group basis, there is another form which I've just distributed. If you look at it carefully, it is more of individual judgment of what you have planned so far. To-do list, topics, maybe market plan. What are your expectations individually? What have you learned? How do you itemize your business plan? 1, 2, 3, 4. Another topic, that is the second one. What have you learned on that same maybe entrepreneurship? What do you know about that? How do you go about it? You have been itemized. This, you have to fill this one through your jotting. It's supposed to be through maybe visual, giving a content, but through your jotting you're able to get what I am trying to say. So by tomorrow, please, I'm going to collect it.
Now, how many of you think that is very simple? 50,000 naira medical supply business. Good. But that is a good idea, okay? Because now you know, even though you don't have the money, you can look for methods by which you can start the business. Now, let's say equipment. You want to buy equipment, $5 million. All right? You don't have the money. And then you agreed with a company in China to supply you the materials. And they said, okay, we accept letter of credit. Now, letter of credit can be different types, confirmed letter of credit, guaranteed, we don't want to go into that. But let's just call it, for argument's sake, letter of credit. Now, within this, you will have various parties doing different things. First of all, you will have the issuing bank. Now, you have the issuing bank, the bank that will issue you the letter of credit. Are you following me? You don't have the money. You want them to give you letter of credit. The company that is supplying you the materials in China, they want you to tell your bank to issue you a letter of credit, send them the samples, they will take that sample, take it to their bank in China and say, is this acceptable to you? And then they say, yes, this is a reputable bank. We think whatever happens, they will pay. So the company that is giving you the letter of credit is the issuing bank. The bank in China that will be accepting the letter of credit will be the accepting bank. How many banks in Nigeria do you know that will, very readily give you a letter of credit if you do not have collateral? They will not. Yeah, that's not the simple answer. Because if you want to raise a letter of credit for $5 million in any bank in Nigeria, they will tell you to bring collateral that is worth about $10 million. Do you understand that? Now, that is why people like my firm, we've been looking at ways by which you can invent methods to cover that problem with collateral. So what we do is we go to a market place like England, New York, Boston, all those places. We look for an instrument that we can lease. You know that collateral can come either in physical asset or financial asset. Physical asset like this building, you can put this building down. But if you don't have a building, you can give financial asset, that is financial instrument. Alright? So we go to a place like England in the Euroclear market, and then we will lease an instrument. There are instruments there with different face values. It can be 150 million euro, it can be 20 million euro. We call them medium-term instruments. These are instruments that are issued by premium banks. And then you could have, for example, you could have a big company in England or a large NGO, international NGO. They create company papers. I'll tell you how company paper is created in a minute. They create company papers. They will say we have a corporate bond of $10 million face value. They back that paper with their name, and that paper is traded in the Euroclear market. Okay, it's a kind of complicated process, but I hope by the time I finish you will understand it. So when they issue that paper, you could buy a medium-term note in London for, say, $50 million note. All right? What we'll do, we will lease that instrument. Maybe that instrument was issued by HSBC, for example, one of the largest banks in the world. They put that instrument in the Euroclear under their name, and people are using it to trade. So what we will do, we will tell them, we want to lease this paper that has a face value of $50 million. And then they will say, okay, I told you when I started this program yesterday that there are two primary rights in law, possessory right and proprietary right. Proprietary right. They will lease us that instrument. When they lease us that instrument, you know what is happening now? The HSBC will be retaining the proprietary right. And then we will take the possessory right. That possessory right would allow us to reassign this instrument into our company name. So that when somebody goes into the Euroclear, by the way, you can go there and check all the financial instruments. You will see which instrument, which face value, and which company owns the instrument. All these instruments are paper money. Okay, they are like corporate bonds, like IOUs. like corporate bonds, when company issue bonds, give me $1 million today, I give you this paper, I owe you $1 million, then I will pay you 2% interest over a period of time, and I give you the capital back. Those are corporate bonds. So when you check Euroclear, you will know the company that own all these papers. So when we take that 50 million from London, from the market there, we will reassign it to your company, and then we pay them a fee, a leasing fee. That is why, if you are doing this sort of international financial arrangement, you pay 2 separate fees. Usually you pay, the normal interest for borrowing money, but you then have to pay an additional fees, leasing fee of this instrument, because you do not have collateral. Do you understand? So when we now take that paper, we pay them something like 2% leasing fee. We will now take that paper and send it to who now? The company that is issuing the instrument. Because you remember, you didn't give them any security, so they have a problem giving you the money. So when we send them this $50 million corporate instrument paper, they will give it to them, and then they will now say, okay, all right, we are comfortable. And then they give us the letter of credit. Once they give us the letter of credit, then the people in China that are selling, remember? Yes. They will now say to us, okay, you need to send us the paper. And then we will now come to the local bank. Because we still have to involve the local bank in carrying out the transaction. So our local bank that will give you all the instruments where we discuss the transaction with them, those ones will not talk to their bank. You understand? So it will now be bank to bank discussion on our behalf. Are you following me? Yes. So when we get the local banks involved, they will now be talking to the accepting bank in China about the instrument that is changing hands. And the paper that is issued by this issuing bank, maybe in the United States, have been given to this bank in China. Once they receive, they will now be able to give out the papers for the equipment that you are buying. Remember, like the bill of lading, the invoice, and every other thing that comes with it. So when the Chinese people now receive the money, they will arrange for the shipping. All right, for the shipping to come down to Nigeria. Guess where would the bill of lading and the title document of the goods, where would it go now?
The issuing bank.
It will be with the issuing bank.
The issuing bank.
These guys will not allow you to receive the bill of lading here, because once you get the bill of lading, then you automatically transfer the title. They transfer the title to you. So what will happen is that the issuing bank will tell them to consign all the title document and bill of lading to them, and then we issue us a trust receipt to us. When we get that trust receipt, we will use it to clear the goods. When the goods are cleared, depending on what the arrangement is, if you have a ready buyer or whatever it is you want to do with the equipment, you can quickly convert it into the money and make the money available. All this you play out with your local bank, because you have already put your local bank in touch with them, that as soon as the money is ready, they will quickly convert the money to them, discount the instrument, banks have to collect their fees and everything. Once all that discussion happens between them, they will now release the actual title document to you, which is the bill of lading.
Sir, as we are here, civil servant just leaving the service for business enterprise. What is the Nigerian